Hey, good morning, guys. It is an early edition of the Master Motivation Podcast. My name is Jason Flame. And today, on January 25th, I'm starting with some new gear. I'm starting in a new podcast room today. And I've got an amazing guest who's going to be a lot of fun to talk with today. Amazing. This is Brendan Devine, or Brendan Cleary. He was born and raised in Moorpark, California. He graduated from Cal State University, Channel Islands in 2017 with a degree in history. Brendan was married in 2020 to the love of his life. Brendan started training to be a professional wrestler in 2016 and debuted in 2017 at 22 years old. He is currently wrestling on a semi-full schedule while working full-time. Brendan is trying to navigate his crazy schedule and chase a dream all at the same time. Amazing. I'm a believer.
That's good. Everyone should be.
That's right. So what's
That's
up,
the whole
man?
idea.
How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm pretty pumped because you're the first guest with the new setup in the new room. I hope that everybody watching hears a difference in the sound, a little brighter in here, maybe. I don't know, but let's talk about you, Brendan. Let's talk about
me. People don't do that enough. They don't talk about me enough.
So we met through Millennium Pro Wrestling at the Millennium Wrestling Academy when we were in Moorpark. And, you're the younger brother of Danny Cleary, Danny Devine. Danny's been on the show and is with me every Tuesday for Tuesday Thoughts. And so we kind of met through your brother, through training. And then, we started working out a lot together and became really good friends over the last several years. And, what I want to talk about first is, what was it that made you want to become a professional wrestler?
It was always the when and what was it like, but not the why. You don't get that question a lot. For me, it was a bunch of different things. You met me back in 2016 when I started. I was real thin, real frail, and I always wanted to get physically fit. I was always fascinated by the idea of being fit and working out and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I never had a good enough motivator at that point, because I was 20 and it was like, I'll live forever. I don't need to worry about protecting my body, and I wasn't I knew what a long road it would be. So the motivation to do it wasn't there as much. But then Danny started wrestling at the MPW shows in Moorpark back in 2015. And I would go to every show because you support, but in all honesty, because I loved watching, because I was a big wrestling fan growing up. And so, I watched him wrestling forever. And I was like, man, I really think I could do it too. It wasn't as soon as I got out of high school, I was ready to go. It took some time, So when I started training in 2016, I went to the gym first. And I did that for 2 months. And when I first saw my beginner gains coming through a little bit in the first couple months, I went, all right, I'm big and strong now. I can be a wrestler. And that, I guess, is what motivated me to train and to get involved. And then once I got involved and once I was on a regular schedule, it just took off from there.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you, being the younger brother of someone who started wrestling before you, I'm the oldest of three boys, right? And I feel like, my youngest brother is also a martial artist. And one of the things that I think, always kind of it always worried me, and it always made me think about it a little bit, that he had to live in my shadow. And, big brother did it, so little brother's doing it. What was that like for you, and how do you separate yourself from that without, being compared to your older brother?
That was something that I did struggle with a lot in the early days because, my wrestling name is Brendan Devine, which is the worst name ever. It came about because, Danny Devine, that's a great name. Danny Devine, it flows, alliteration's there. But with me they went, well, you have to be a Devine because you're with Danny and you're going to be brothers. And
Right.
MPW was in Moorpark. So that's where I grew up. That's my hometown. So they said, we can't change your first name because people will call you by your real name anyways, so we might as well just go with it.
Right.
I was like, okay, like, because my first pitch, for a little bit of backstage stuff was I wanted to be Desmond Divine. It'd be Danny and Desmond Divine, double D's the whole way. It was a cool homage because my dad's name was Desmond. So I was like, that'll be fun. And they're like, nope, you're going to be Brendan Divine, and that's it. And here I am 7 years later with the same name, same moniker. How I say I broke out of it, I guess, or how I didn't let it affect me was just work, work ethic and having enough confidence in myself and knowing that, when Danny and I did stuff together, it was our success. But every time that he did anything on his own or I did anything on my own, it was still our success because we're real brothers in real life and we want to see each other succeed more than anything. And my number one supporter through and through is Danny. He's always the one that's, if I have something that I'm going to do booking wise or work wise outside of him and I being a team, he's always like, go do it, like go nail it, go kill it. Like recently I've taken on a role at the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood or Championship Wrestling United Wrestling Network show, and that's by myself. I don't have Danny's not involved with that at all. And when that opportunity came up for me, he said, do it, don't even think twice about it. Like, don't worry about us being a team or anything. Go do that. Go show them that you're worthwhile and that you belong there.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have had some great success as a tag team and as a unit, but you've also gone out and done several things on your own. Talk about some of the other companies that you've worked for and some of the experiences that you've had outside of Millennium Pro Wrestling.
So I was a late bloomer when it came to getting bookings outside of my school per se. That's something that's kind of normal in the wrestling scene is you go to school, you train, you get as ready as you can. And when your trainers tell you, hey, like, I think you can have Matt, I think you're ready to go get booked. Because that's the trainer's name is on you. And so you want to be able to take them to success, and they want to be willing to be like, yes, I trained this person, I vouch for them. Because that's ultimately how you get anywhere in any kind of business is the vouching of someone who's been doing it or someone who is successful. And then you build your name off of the ground up from there, as long as you get that okay. So I was told that I was good enough and that I could go, but I had this insecurity of like, I need to be really, really, really good before I go and wrestle other places. So I didn't really get my first outside booking so I started training in 2016. My first match outside of MPW was in, I think, 2018 or late 2017. So it was like a full year.
Okay.
So some of the promotions that I did early on is there's the biggest one I would say that we like to do was the Ground Zero down in San Diego, and that's B-Boy's promotion, which is gone now. COVID was a real difficult thing with that, but that's really where I met the top guys in the scene and got to have matches with guys who were at a higher caliber than I was, that were able to really teach me and give me a new perspective entirely on how to wrestle and how to engage an audience and how to, and then that's traveling around. And then since then, I've been involved with the United Wrestling Network for a while. I used to do their Arizona show a few times, and then I would do their Hollywood tapings in Port Hueneme. I've recently started going out to Orange County for Venue Wrestling Entertainment, VWE. I love that place. Their crowds are always so great. They love me over there. I have a great time going out there. It's been fun. And recently, Danny and I have picked up going to NTLL, New Tradition Lucha Libre, which is out in Palmdale. And it's in this a brewery, the Transplant Brewery, and the show was so amazing. And we're there. We already have the next few dates lined up for them, and it's been just a crazy run the last year and a half for sure.
You talked about the insecurity of being good enough. I think that's a good point to bring up on a show that's titled Master Motivation, right?
Sure.
I think everybody at some point has that feeling of not being good enough, of not being able to take that next step or to take that leap of faith to start something new. What was it that changed your mind, or what was it that gave you that boost of confidence that pushed you forward to get out?
Well, the biggest thing was is I had to just take the first step. And the first step when it came to anything like that is always scary, and it's always hard because it's putting you outside your comfort zone. People say I thrive in the uncomfortable, but getting there is difficult and scary. So the first time was, like I said, when we wrestled at this Ground Zero. Danny and I wrestled with our trainer Ray Rosas and he was a big local indie guy, and he said, "Hey, B-Boy has a couple of students down in San Diego, and he wants to wrestle me and you guys versus them." And I told him we would do it. And I went, I can't say no. I have to. You know what I mean? Like it's scary to go down there, and I don't really know anybody, but taking that first step and then being there and being able to have an on par match with guys who I thought were way at a certain level. And you kind of realize bit by bit, okay, like maybe I'm on this level. Maybe I can get to this level. And then it's just more and more you start, when you have those successes and you learn from it, when you take your failures as learning, and then you use that knowledge you developed from these other smaller failures to push you to these successful and push you outside of that comfort zone. Well, I was successful there, so I bet I can do it here too.
Right.
It's just, and it's always just pushing yourself past that ceiling that every person has of oh man, like it's to be so much easier for me to not have to do that. It'd be so comfy here. It's so much nicer. But if you want to, push yourself and get to those extra goals that everyone has, is that uncomfortableness and getting used to it. Is the ticket for me that really worked.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was I at that first show when you did down in San Diego. I think Mason and I came down. Yeah,
and it was surreal.
It's crazy. It was a lot of fun. I mean, I have absolutely loved watching your growth from day one to where you are now. Anybody that watches you is just in awe of not only your talent but your personality. I mean, I think that's what really sets you and Danny apart. If we were to look at you side by side, is Danny has such a mind for the wrestling, and he has the physical attributes, but I think where you really shine is your personality. I mean, you get out there, and I mean, when you started doing the phone gimmick, that was probably so off the cuff, but it was just so you.
It was, I totally agree with you in that regard when it comes to the dynamic between Danny and I, and the difference between us in that scale is because, growing up, going way back, is Danny was always an athlete. He was fast. He was good at sports. He could jump 1,000 feet in the air. He still can.
Yeah.
It just, and doing it, all that stuff just came easy to him. And it did not for me. I was lanky. My feet are as flat as a duck. I couldn't, when I first started training, I couldn't do anything. It took some time. But I had an injury back in 2019. I broke my ankle, and I was a pretty regular, gym goer, and I was really starting to come into my own. And I remember after I broke my ankle, as soon as I was able to walk again, I went, I'm going to commit to, the next thing that's going to get me to where I need to be in this wrestling thing is I have to look the part. And I took that so seriously because someone had said to me in the regards of it was probably like an Al Snow or some guy who was an old timer in the business had said what is the difference between you and somebody who paid a ticket to see you wrestle? If you can't see the difference between them and you, there's a problem.
Right.
And that doesn't mean you have to be a giant up, juiced up guy. A great example of that I always have is in all elite wrestling right now, Darby Allin. He's not a huge guy. He's pretty small, but you can tell the difference between him and a fan, and someone who pays to see him wrestle. So I didn't have that yet. And so I took that time when I was injured to really work on that and really make that a passion of mine. And now, wrestling is, a passion and almost like a job. But my passion that I found through it was weightlifting.
Yeah.
And doing that side of it.
Well, hey, I want to say good morning to your brother again. He's watching. He woke up.
It's not about Danny. All right. What about me? Good morning. He's
good morning, Danny. Yeah, we're missing the gym together today, but that's okay. You brought up your trainer, one of your trainers, Ray Rosas. I know that you all also trained with Seth Skyfire, Coach Steve. Talk about the impact that those coaches and any other coaches have had on your career as a pro wrestler, and what you've learned from each one of them.
I mean, so I would say that my training is broken up into three sections for sure. Like when it comes to before I was having real matches, back in around October, November of 2016, Danny was given a key to the Moorpark school, and so him and his friend Daniel Moon would pull me in on a Saturday on a night there wasn't class, and they would teach me how to bump and how to run the ropes and how to like get ready so that when I went to my first real class, I wasn't useless yet. So I learned all the basic roles and movements from, Danny and Daniel Moon. And then I went into my first Steve class, my first Seth Skyfire class, and he thought that I was Danny. And I remember like halfway through my second class, he was like, why can't you do this thing? And I was like, I don't know how. I've never done it before. And he goes, yes, you have. And he goes, you're not Danny, are you? And I go, no, I'm Danny's brother. And he was like, and it blew his mind. He had no idea. But so Steve taught me so much that I didn't understand at the time about what wrestling is about and what we're trying to do. And he really would throw you into the fire. He'd be like, we're going to do this one spot. And it's like, oh, I don't know how to do that move. He goes, try it. Right. And then you would try it and he'd be like, that was bad, but now you've tried it. So now you can do it. So that's where I kind of learned all the, my moves and all my safe holds, safe pickups, all that kind of stuff from Steve, but also like subconsciously, he's teaching me the psychology of wrestling, and he's teaching me the how to engage and why people come up and come down and what the story you're trying to tell as you're going. Right. So that didn't unlock until a year later, but he was teaching it to us at the time. So when it comes to the core of my training and pretty much all of my wrestling psychology, I picked it up from Steve. Mm-hmm. Eventually, work and life got in the way, and it's always a tricky thing for me. And when Ray came to MWA, he brought in a perspective that was totally new. Steve was, I'm from Alabama. You wrestle 80-year-olds. You can't hurt them. You can't touch them. You're soft as it can be. And then he was in WWE. And so he was like, this is what we learned in WWE. So this is correct. Because if you want to be successful in wrestling, you have to go to WWE. That was the only thing that existed then. So Ray was a different side of it. Ray was a guy who was really on the indies and on the modern indies and in the area. So his perspective of like, I know every person who's ever wrestled in Southern California. I've wrestled them. I've had good matches with them. This is how I put together my matches. This is how you network in the area. This is how you get booked. Because Steve was just like, go out and do it. But the networking side of it, we got from Ray. And then also my footwork, because Ray was big into lucha and big into less is more with your movement. Because Steve was like the theatrics and be big and rah, but Ray was a lot more. Where are your feet? Are you falling over yourself? Are you stumbling over your opponent? Like I really cleaned up my movements and my progression when Ray came in. Mm-hmm. And then, a coach of mine that I think was the biggest part of my success in wrestling, I think, is you with the weightlifting. I went into 2016 and not knowing a thing, and Danny said, "You're going to work out with me and Flame," and you showed me how to, how to do everything correctly, so that when it was time for me to go work out on my own, I knew how to do everything safely, and I knew how to progress myself. Because wrestling is great and all, but if you're not physically fit enough to do it, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to hurt somebody else.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I appreciate you saying that, because I do pride myself on the fact that I have worked with several people, not necessarily in the wrestling portion. I used to love when Danny and I taught the Millennium Wrestling Academy beginners class, because I got to do all the workout stuff. I've always loved working out, being a martial artist, like cardio and stuff like that. But, again, cardio in wrestling and cardio in martial arts, pretty different in a lot of ways, right? And weightlifting and being in the ring, totally different things. But again, I appreciate you saying that. And I've always enjoyed working out with you and Danny, because you guys push me just as much as maybe I taught you or pushed you. We always get a good workout. I can work out by myself and it's like, okay. And then we work out together and I'm like, dude, I'm sore for like 3 days. We push each other. The last workout was great. So So, Danny, Steve, and Ray are the ones that really taught you how to wrestle, gave you your start. Now you're a trainer at Millennium Wrestling Academy. And so how does that, how for you, how has that progression been from going, from a student to a worker to now being a trainer, being able to offer your knowledge?
So the being able to train other people was something that was always kind of on the back burner for me, because I like to teach and I like to get in there and be like, this is how you do something, or this and that. But it was never something that I strive to do. Like, with the classes we have now at MWA, like they're like, when they were reorganizing the week, they're like, all right, well, Brendan, what's your day? And I go, I don't want a day. I don't want a day that I have to go and train people, because I want to just go and train when I want to. And when I'm there, I'll throw in my 2 cents of what I think. And the coaches are really, receptive to what I say. So that means something. So I guess I would call myself more of an assistant trainer above anything else. But it helps your training to teach others, because when you see them doing it incorrectly, or you see them doing it in a way that you're like, it's not quite like that, you have to then train your brain to develop a way to make it easy for them to understand,
right?
Which then you can use when you're having your matches, because when you're explaining, this is how I want this moment to work out, or how this would work. I've explained this to someone who doesn't even know how to do anything. This person does, and now I can explain it to them in an easier way too.
Right. Well, when you're teaching someone, you're really learning it twice.
Literally, yeah, it feels that way.
I as a martial arts instructor for almost 30 years, I learned so much by teaching the techniques and being able to apply it myself. And I also learned that, this is something that I just talked with a teacher yesterday about, is that some instructors, some teachers, some coaches will teach the technique and expect the student to learn it in that way. Whereas really good coaches, really good teachers, really good instructors find the way that the student learns and applies it to them. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. I totally get that. And that's the part where you find who's a teacher and who's not, because when it comes to, it's because I did a lot of teaching in outside of my wrestling career, and I did a lot of instruction in different ways. That was a big, part of my life for a while. And I thought it was going to be my career path. It ended up not being. But I always felt like in school, because I did average in school. I wasn't ever like the top student, or I didn't. It wasn't as easy to me as it was to most people. But I just worked super hard. Right. And I really do think that, because some teachers definitely were like, do it this way, and then I would pick it up immediately. It's a certain, like me, I can't do tests. That was always the thing that was the trick with me. It was like, here's a test. I go, I'm not going to do well on this, because that's not how I process information and deliver it.
Right.
Ask me to do a speech. Ask me to do talk to you and explain it, and I'll be able to do it, but not like this. Writing it out doesn't make me. It's so weird. So yeah, I think the idea of finding the way to make it work for whoever it is always the best solution. But also knowing when to be like, all right, let's cut it for today, or let's take a stop. You need, as like yourself, to look into yourself and find out what it is you think you're having a hard time with. And because I think teaching a student and a teacher, it's a 50-50 relationship, 100% with me. So when I see some students now where it's like, I've heard a few times like, well, like, why can't you just show it to me like this? And I go, because that's not how it works. You have to just kind of discover it, what feels right to you. And then this is how to do it properly, but having it make sense and doing it properly is not always the same thing.
Yeah, and you and I have talked about your approach when it comes to being in the ring with someone is you're pretty blunt and pretty brutally honest when it comes to feedback or critique and letting them know. And I think that that's important. And some students have a really hard time. Danny and I talk about this all the time. Some students have a really hard time taking a critique or taking criticism or feedback almost as an insult. And I read something the other day is that ego-driven people think that way. But people with a growth mindset listen to a critique or correction as feedback and helpful. That resonates with you, I'm sure, right? When you've got someone in the ring and you're teaching them, you have to just let them know. Otherwise, I think we give them a false sense of security or a false sense of knowledge. I mean, listen, let's face it. Some of these beginners get in the ring, they have a match, they're in a battle royal, and they think they're like the end all be all, but they really don't know jack, right?
Is so, I always things always come back to like the way that I operate when it comes to how I am with how I was raised and what my parents are like. But my parents were big on the truth is always the move, is always the right way about it. Because lying will always come back around, or like making it up is always going to come back around. That's where I've found success in all of my professional life, is just I am 100% honest and straight with everything that I am, because the idea of I also can't lie. It's impossible. You will know immediately that if I'm not telling you the truth. And my approach with wrestling and teaching goes with that. Is I was like, hey man, like, it's like someone does something, I go, that wasn't terrible, but I would never put that on a show, or I would never let you do this or this or this, or I would never let you do that to me. And sometimes people don't like that. But I think a big part of wrestling is if you can't take things like that from me, how do you expect to take them from, if you want to go and get signed, how are you going to take those from, William Regal or, like famous people who are in these big wrestling companies? Because guess what? They're going to say that was terrible and you need to start all over again.
Right.
And so I have that in the back of my mind always of like, I think I'm good now, or I think I can do whatever, until I get into a situation where someone goes, hi, you don't know anything. Here's how you do it. I go, oh, great.
Right.
So I'm just prepping for that when that inevitably happens to me.
So what is the end goal? What is the ultimate situation for you in professional wrestling?
I don't have one. I think that's where my success has come from. I came into wrestling by accident. I've done everything that I've done sort of by accident. My goal is to go as far as I can, and to not close doors, but to when situations present themselves, is just to not be afraid to say yes. A big thing that I put in my bio that I told you about was I wrestle on a semi-full schedule because I work full time. I've never been a person who can be like, I'm quitting everything I'm doing to just do this one thing. I always got to have something that I'm always working on, because wrestling is not always that for me. And to get it going, it does require me to be away from the stuff I really care about, which is my family, my wife, and being at my house and all those kinds of things. So You know, when it comes to every opportunity that I've received so far, is I go after it now. I'm hitting up promoters and I'm going to shows and I'm trying to get this thing going and push it as far as I can. But I also am not putting everything into it because I have my job that I'm really involved with, and I have this side of my life that isn't wrestling at all.
Mm-hmm.
And me as an individual succeeding in life in general, I find to be more important than to succeed just in wrestling. So that's why it's if I set a goal for myself of I have to get signed, let's say by the time I'm this age or by the time that I've done this much stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I'm setting myself up for failure, I think. Because I could push and I could go for it and I could get lucky, but like there's a lot of luck that goes into it. Hangman Page did an interview one time where he talked about his plan B, where he went, I went in on wrestling when I was really, really at a high moment and I went for it and it worked out. But if it did not work out, I had something else and I had something to go back to. And I'm a big believer in that. I think that there's nothing wrong, and I think it's irresponsible to not have something that you can do and not develop another skill, because wrestling is a short-term career, man. When you look at your life and you look at how many guys have been in wrestling, right, for more than 20 years? Not very many.
Very few.
And people who have made enough money to provide for their families and and start families and things like that. So I look at it like that: is will I risk my life entirely on chasing the wrestling dream? I won't, but I don't close doors.
Gotcha.
Well, the last answer, because it's not like an impassioned, you know what I mean? It's not like I thought WrestleMania was game over. See, I don't have that, so people go like, you're boring.
No, I get you. Well, hey, Dana Abbott, thank you for watching again today and checking in, commenting. For those of you that are still watching here live, or maybe you're watching a little bit later on a replay, drop some comments. Let us know what you think, what you've heard so far, what you've learned, what you've taken from this interview.
Are you a believer? That's what I want to know.
That's all Brennan wants to know. Are you a believer? Yes or no? Just put it in the comments now. Last wrestling related question.
Go for it.
Because I bring a lot of my friends, a lot of people that I've met through professional wrestling on the show, and I think that there's there's always kind of the stigma. We grew up wrestling fans. We love wrestling.
Still love wrestling. Huge,
right? We want to get in the ring, right?
I'm watching the Rumble on Saturday.
But you've got some people. This is so funny. Danny is not a believer. There are some people that would ask, what's the point of pro wrestling? Like, it's fake, it's this, it's that, it's lame, whatever. Why do you, I know it hurts, right?
How did you say
that? Why are you passionate about professional wrestling, and what is it about professional wrestling that has such value to you in your life and to those that are involved in it? Because I think we all have kind of this similar draw to it.
Yeah, I mean, for some reason, if you're involved with wrestling or if you watch wrestling or like wrestling, that is always every person has dealt with. But like, what is it? Is it like fake? Is it this, and that? And what I say to that always is I always give them the TV comparison, and actually, and it's entertainment, and you know what I mean? Like, you can think it's fake all you want. I don't care what you say. I mean, I make that joke all the time because I think that it upsets people in wrestling. I know it's not fake. I know the pain that goes into it and the work that goes into it. The question is kind of why? What is the attraction to it? It's a disease. You catch the bug. It's just a passion that people don't have for most other things. If you're a social media person, or if you go to those, even watch WWE live or AEW live, the passion that fans and wrestlers alike share in what wrestling is like, once you get into it, you're like obsessed. You want to know what's going on at all times. Who's popular? Who's popping off? Who's the champion? What's CM Punk doing? All that kind of stuff.
Right.
And so for me, I have found it's just a passion, 100%. Is I love doing it. Every time I go anywhere, I always go, if I'm not having fun, what's the point? Why would I be here? So might as well just try to have fun.
Right.
You know, if I'm not having, because I see guys who are miserable all the time who are there and they're like, oh, I was here and I have to go there and I have to go there. I'm like, man, if you just tried to have fun instead, it'd be way better. My catchphrase always, not really catchphrase, but my saying I always go is whenever I'm at a show and everybody is miserable, I always go like, I'm going to take all the fun that they're not having and I'm going to have it instead.
Right.
Because, yeah, it never made any sense to me to go and be doing stuff because it's hard. It's hard on your body. It's hard on your schedule. It's hard on your relationships. Like, it's such a hard thing to be involved in that if you want to do it, it's got to be because the payoff of doing it is so fun, and the relationships you make and the friends you meet and the ego-driven acclaim you develop, because that's also every wrestler's a little bit of an egomaniac. Look at me on the stage. Look at me do my move. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I always find it interesting when I meet people that are, they're just not happy to be there, like you said, right? Like you see them in the locker room, like my day was this. And it's like, how could you not have fun doing what we do? For me, wrestling was, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man, Roddy Piper, like those were my superheroes. I was not a Batman, Superman. I wasn't a comic book hero type of kid. I watched wrestling on TV and I thought these guys are freaking superheroes, right? And I was drawn in. I mean, let's face it, it's like a male soap opera, right? I mean, we dig the drama, we dig the stories. It pulls you in, and just to be able to have that chance to get in the ring at all, like that was such a huge thing for me at 38 years old to be able to jump in the ring, have fun, and call it fake fighting, whatever you want. I mean, let me tell you, I have faced many people, A, that I know can take care of themselves very well, B, probably in some of the best physical shape of many different types of athletes. I mean, look at what goes on in the ring and the mental aspect of, I look at wrestling sometimes like a well planned out football game, right? I mean, you don't just throw the ball. I mean, there's like a strategy to it. Well, there's a psychology to wrestling. There's so much more that goes into it that people just truly have no idea if you've never done it. But for me, it was always about superheroes. Sometimes that is true. Hey, let's take this comment real quick. Dana Abbott, it says he remembers back in the 60s. I wasn't born yet. Pepper Martin, Haystack Calhoun, and those wrestlers who always said their opponents were pencil neck geeks. Yeah, I think that was a Freddie Blassie quote there. Danny's asking, well, I guess we'll keep going with wrestling. Top 3 matches you've had.
That one's tough. I've had a lot of matches, and it's always people go the top 3 is like, is it the 3 that I think were the best, or like the 3 that I feel like with me, what constitutes the top is that I got the best reaction from everyone, and it's something. It's like the match is always like, it's also the lead up to it, like what led to the match, and like did that big payoff. So I guess I'll go off of that, and I say the 3 that stick out to me the most overall was one is I had a match with Auntie Heidi back in 2019 at MPW where we did a big blow-off feud between her and I. It was and we call it was the ultimate grudge match where I was being mean to her for like 6 months, and then we had this match, and what I was able to get out of her and get out of the audience and just tell the story of what it was felt like a major success point for me, and so I always remember that match. Another one I has again is I had a long feud with a rival of mine named Jordan Cruz that led to a 2 out of 3 falls match that I had with him. And whereas the match was grueling and it was hard and like it wasn't even probably my best match that I've had, but the story and all the lead up to it was so pro wrestling in my opinion, and then the payoff was so the buzz that we got around it, like the hype video that we got for it and everything was just, it felt like old school WWE, like 90s to 2000s WWE, which is what I call old school because I'm only 28 years old. But so that one. And then I always in my this is probably not top 3, but it's definitely top 5 is you and me back in MPW in 2018 when I won the championship for the first time. I watched back that match a lot because psychologically it's great, and the story is so clear and so like prevalent. And you see me from when I start to then change in the middle, and then at the end where I turn heel and I'm this bad guy. I just think that I came with a purpose that night, and then you have the right dance partner who has the right ideas, and it feels the same way that you do. So I would say, Brendan versus Heidi, Brendan versus Jordan 2 out of 3, and then me versus Master Flame.
Wow, I get 2 mentions from you today on this show. I feel
You're a big part of my wrestling life.
I feel honored. I never considered myself ever to be a good technical wrestler or a good at psychology per se. But I always had fun, and I always had. Well, I mean, between you and Danny and Daniel Moon, I always looked really good. I looked better than I was, basically. And like you said, when you have the right dance partner, it just makes a nice match. And I think that the chemistry that you and I had was always really, really good.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Well, listen, let's break away from wrestling for just a second, and let's talk. Let's talk more about Brendan Cleary. And you went to Cal State Channel Islands and got your degree in history. What was the goal with that? Like you talked about, maybe wanting to be a teacher at one point.
Was that totally cool. Is I went to Moorpark College at first after high school because it was next to my house, and I'm not about spending $1 million to go to college. So I went to Moorpark
or debt,
which I went to Moorpark College for 2 years. Went as soon as I was done, went right to Channel Islands. It was close, commuted there from my parents' house at the time. Mm-hmm. History was always something that I succeeded in, and I loved it's telling stories. That's all it is. And that's what my passion in life is I'm a storyteller in every aspect of it. That's why I gravitate towards wrestling so much, I think, because it's storytelling, it's sport, all in the same thing. Mm-hmm. So the history side of it is I learned so much about why people do things and how things, the revolving door that is time when it comes to people and how they've acted. Civilizations were built and crumbled like in the span of 100 years. You know what I mean? And like, people are like, oh, well, this is the way things is, and this is how it'll be forever. It's like, no, because if history has told us anything, this is how it goes.
Right.
And so, having that what it really did for me, learning history was empathy for people and for groups that I did not really involve myself. I understanding struggles of people who were not like me. Mm-hmm. And creating that, that understanding of like, this is what it was like to be, an indigenous person in the United States, like during colonization. This is what it was like to be, an African-American person during slavery and everything like that. And just be like seeing these things and just not understanding, but trying to just be empathetic towards that and understanding mm-hmm. that. that's what I learned the most when I was in college and studying history, is that side of the human interaction and everything like that. And it really affected me and made me the person that I am today. But then I was going to be a teacher, and I just didn't one day. I just went, I don't want to do that at all. And I went and got a job somewhere else.
Well, you and I have talked about this a little bit. That's happened a couple times for you throughout your career, and you're very versatile in the way that, you know. If anybody's been listening to the conversation as we've been going almost this past hour, you know, Brendan can turn on a dime so quickly. You can really turn on a dime and change careers, change, you know, your style, change your, you know, who you're talking to. You really adapt well to different people. And I think that's one of your best qualities, is that you're always adaptable to any person around you. And you just kind of brought that up about how, you know, you try to understand people, and that's what history has taught you.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, you talked about storytelling and how that kind of draws you into history. I hated school. I just did not like school. It was one of those things that, like, I couldn't wait to get out, and I couldn't wait to work. And I already knew what I wanted to do. So, but I started to appreciate history much later in life. I mean, now one of the things I love most is reading history, watching History Channel, you know, documentaries. I love reading biographies. I love reading about pretty much anybody, and reading about their life, because I think there's so much we can learn, which is really the whole purpose of this podcast, is learning about people's lives and how they think and how they move from one place to another. But, you know, storytelling is actually my word, the word that I chose for myself for this year. And I think that you know, kind of ties everything in, is that I love the story of wrestling. I love the story that you're telling. I love reading biographies. And I just think we can all, you know, learn something from each other, which I think is important, that we take some time to learn from each other. Right.
Absolutely.
So you're going to be a teacher. That didn't really work out. You're kind of, you know, getting ready to change careers here now in just a bit. You met your wife in high school, right?
So I met my wife. We were really good friends in high school, but we didn't get together until we were well into college.
Okay. You guys been together how long now?
We've been married we're going on 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So we got married in the height of the pandemic.
Yes, you did.
July of 2020. But September of this year will be 10 years together.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Good for you. I mean, and you're a young dude. Like 10 years, that's, you know, more than a third of your life.
I remember, like, I told her, like, because she was like, do you remember, like, when, like you knew? And I was like, yeah, I knew, like, well before we started even dating. I was like, okay, I think this is it, and that's it for me. Mm-hmm. And I was right. So there you go. Winner.
So there you go. Right. And your wife is very supportive of your wrestling, which for a lot of spouses.
Yeah, she made this. This awesome. Like this design. It actually, so you know, I'll go into this. Is I was doing stuff on my own, and I needed a kind of a logo. Everyone needs a logo, right? And she goes, yeah, but like what do you want your logo to be? And I go, I don't know. It has to be something that, like, I care about, so it, like, matters. So what this is, right, is it's a rendition of the Celtic knot of marriage. So she, you know, the actual Celtic knot you can't use because you can't sell stuff on the internet or whatever that is. So she took that idea and changed it up a little bit and made it look like this, so that, you know, now, you know, I'm 100% Irish, so it's a heritage thing, but it's also, you know, the most important thing to me ever is right there.
Wow.
So that's where that comes from. That's on my gear as well. So every time I wrestle, I got that on my leg.
I've known you how long, and I never even knew that.
It's a new thing within the last year, so don't feel bad.
That's pretty cool, though. I think that's really neat. I think that's really cool. You know, one other thing that I want to talk about, and, you know, we have to spend a lot of time on it, but, you know, you're very you're strong in your faith. We go to the same church. Your family has always been involved at Holy Cross for as long as I know, and probably as long as you've known.
As long as I've existed.
Yeah. So talk about how important your faith is in your life, and how that translates in your marriage and in your friendships and in just your relationship with the church itself.
Yeah, faith is always something that's existed with me because it's just, it's something you grow up with, and it is something that's so easily lost on some people. Is you get older and your life gets busy and you fall out of it and everything. But luckily, who I am married to and the family that I married into is very also extremely religious and has such a strong side of faith with it that it's with two sides that are so faith driven, and when they come together it helps so much when it comes to supporting you and supporting that that faith that you all have with each other and everything, and believing in something that's more than you, whether it's whatever it is for any individual person. For me it's specifically I'm a Catholic. I believe in God and in Jesus as a savior and all of that good stuff. But when it came to my marriage, it was a bigger deal because people make a lot of jokes all the time nowadays about, oh, like it's a formality, like we've been together for 20, we might as well be married. And I go, no, you're not. It's different. Because what I see marriage as is it's not just hey, I promise you, my wife, that I will love you forever. If I believe, and if I'm a faithful man, I'm telling the God that I believe in, I promise to you that I'm going to love this person for as long as I live, no matter what. So it's bigger than me, it's bigger than her, it's bigger than us together, and so that makes it is you look at our wedding photos and you see how serious Aaron and I are, behind our masks, obviously, but how serious we are, during mass when we're getting married, because it's just serious. It's a serious deal to the both of us. And being married and being married in the church like that is super serious, and it's a very real thing. And it's something that I take so personally and seriously, because like I said, I try to simplify everything so it makes sense. But if I believe that this is the greatest power in the world, and this is what I believe, and this is who I put my trust and my faith into, I promise to that thing, this entity, this person, that I'm going to love my wife forever. And there is no option anywhere else. That's the end of it.
Right. Well, and in a society that, marriages fail more than 50% at this point. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go too deep into that, but I understand what you're saying and how important it is, because, my wife and I have been together. Actually, the 23rd was 30 years that we've been together since our first date.
Wow. Happy anniversary.
Yeah. Well, it's a date anniversary. It wasn't really an anniversary, but date anniversary, right?
That doesn't count.
And we married in 99, and I was not raised in a very faith. Well, I shouldn't say that. There was definitely faith filled in our house, but I was not a church goer. I was not Catholic. I was not raised in a Catholic family. My wife, however, who was cradle Catholic, grew up Catholic her whole life, the whole deal. It wasn't until my daughter was baptized that I decided to become Catholic and decided to, profess my faith. And so marriage to me is also, that very same thing, that that is a bond that is bigger than just the two of us. And I think that the example that we set, I hope that my hope is that my kids see that same devotion, that same faith, that same bond that we have, and look for someone that is going to give them that, rather than settle for, well, this person loves me and they want to get married and we'll be together as long as it works out, right? I think that we've been able to show that to our children, who are now almost both, my daughter is definitely an adult, and my son will be 18 in just a few weeks. Believe it or not, Mason will be 18 soon. My parents have been married 40. If I'm 48, they've been married 49 years. And I mean, even though, again, we weren't church-going family, I know that their faith is what has helped keep them together. Because, dude, there's been some, if anybody ever interviews me, I can talk about some stuff that's gone through in our life and the things that my parents have been through. And some of my friends even go, dude, how are your parents even still together? Like, that's just nuts and crazy. But I think it's because, there's something bigger that has helped keep them together. And I just think that that's important to to talk about. And I think that it's good for us to, I have a lot of respect for you in that way. And also Danny and his relationship and many of my friends that treat marriage as something very sacred and special and not just signing a piece of paper, or, we've been together this long, let's get married,
Is if everybody, I feel like these days the world tries to make things feel less special because everybody's got to be cool. Everybody's got to be like, oh, I don't care, like whatever. And I don't understand that side of thinking about like, I'm too cool for whatever it is I'm doing. And so I'm just the total opposite of that. You know what I mean? So to some people, I'm this spaz because I'm like, who cares about any of that stuff? Like, just enjoy what you want to enjoy. If you like doing this, this, and this, but like, don't be like, I'm too cool for any one thing because you're a loser for whatever you like. You're a nerd for whatever you like. So and it's the same thing with your relationships, like stuff like that. It's like, marriage is so overrated. I go, to you, I guess.
Yeah.
But the idea of it being bigger than you, bigger than them, and or bigger than you as a couple is it gives you a respect, I think, and that's ultimately the number one thing is that you have to respect your wife, and you have to respect your husband. You have to respect the person that you're dating or the person you're in a relationship with at all, because if you respect somebody, you're not going to hurt them. You're not going to do something that is not in their best interest because you have that respect for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
But I do. I always try to simplify everything because then it's easier for me to understand.
Right? We're simple people. Hey guys, listen, we're just a couple minutes away from wrapping things up today. So if you are still watching and you have any questions that you want to ask Danny, if you want to ask Brendan, look at that.
Where's the off button? How do I leave?
Click. No, I was looking at his comment here. If you have any comments for Brendan or myself, please comment. Let us know. Ask us your questions. Trying to think if there's anything else I think I've asked you more than I've ever asked you. Danny's available for questions. He's still watching. He's probably in bed though.
Danny, why are you? I don't know.
Steve is watching. Coach Steve. He says, explain your finishing move, Brendan.
You really want to do this to me, Steve? Steve doesn't like my finishing move, but you know what? I'm going to answer for the people. So the move that I've used to put away my opponents most recently is a spinning, roaring, ripcord, whatever you want to call it, spinning forearm, where I hook up a guy in a double chicken wing their arms, and I spin them around. And as I spin them, their arms are trapped, so that by the time that they turn around and face me, they can't block, or they're exposed. And then I use the extra spin and I knock them out with my forearm. It's called the left on red because I used to be on my phone, and so I would leave everybody. And now the way I say it is, what's a wrestler's worst nightmare? To be left on red.
Nice.
So there you go, Steve. It's a cool move. Everyone loves it. You're wrong.
But Steve doesn't like it.
Steve does not like it. Steve's like, you should do a slam. Slams are cool.
Well, he gave you some props. He said, that's awesome. Did. Wow. Awesome.
Steve's got my back, though. He gives me all the tips and tricks I need. He's teaching me. He's still teaching me every single time I'm there. He's like, do you know about this? And I go, no. He goes, oh, let's do this.
Hey, Steve, while you're watching, I know you got an awesome podcast video, YouTube channel on your paranormal activity. Why don't you drop your link in here so people can go check that out? I've been watching.
Hey, Steve, when are you going to invite me to go ghost hunting? Because I've asked you a lot.
Steve needs to go visit. Steve needs to go visit my old house. We just moved, and I swear to God, I swear to you that our last house was haunted. I'm telling you. We just talked about it last night. Huh?
Your old house you used to live in Moorpark?
Yeah, I'm telling you.
I was there. There was no ghost.
I think there was. My wife, my kids, and people that have slept over have seen it. I'm telling you. It's crazy. But now we moved, so the ghost doesn't follow us. Wow, good question here. Facebook user, sorry we don't see your name, but if you want to drop your name, let us know. What keeps you going in wrestling when things get difficult?
My friends, the people who I've met through it, who support me, is whenever I get down on myself, I have people who I think are incredible go, Brendan, you can't quit because you're so good or because I'm inspired by you. So it's my friends. It's John De La Stache. He's a student at the MWA.
Yeah.
Wrong side. Here it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the friends that I've made in wrestling, outside of wrestling. That's your ultimate support system, is because when you're down on yourself, because you're going to be down on yourself more times than you're up. That's just how life works, I think. Your friends and your support system will always get you out of it. It will always push you to be better and push you out of whatever funk you get into.
I would have to agree with that too, because one of the things that I miss most about being at MPW is the people. Like, of course, I love being in the ring. I love training more than I love doing the matches, to be honest. Especially with Steve, because Steve's classes were always like really good workouts. I remember when we were back at Bump U, it was awesome because he would create this obstacle course outside of the ring. It was so cool. It was fun.
Yeah, we do that.
But the people are definitely what help get you through. And this is true in life, not just wrestling, but your friends that support you and your friends that help you get through things. Hey, I'm going to throw this up here real quick, guys, because you got to go check it out. Steven Adkins has his YouTube channel up here, Hollywood Paranormal Detectives. Go check that out. I know he's on YouTube. He's also on TikTok. Pretty neat stuff. Pretty cool deal. Lots of followers. Go check it out.
And I'm going to be on there eventually.
Steve wants to know, what are your wrestling goals for the next 5 years?
Bigger shows, bigger opportunities. My goal for 2023 is I'm looking to try to get a tryout with WWE. I'm hoping to try to do. I'm going to send out some feelers and hopefully get some stuff seen by them, so that in 5 years, to be honest with wrestling, I'll either be making a living off of it or I won't be doing it anymore, probably. That's how I look at it in 5 years.
There we go. Danny supports you. He says.
Danny supports me.
All right. Well, these guys are keeping us going, so we're after the hour mark, but we got more questions, so we'll keep going until you guys.
Surprise! Looks like I bring the podcast to life.
Brent Obillo wants to know.
Love Brent. What up, Obi?
How does your faith support you in wrestling?
It's the same deal of with the confidence of myself is I believe in God, and I believe in something that's bigger than myself. I believe that God does have a plan for me, whatever it is. So when it comes in wrestling, there's a lot of ups and downs, right? There's oh, I want to do this show, or I want to wrestle this person, and sometimes it doesn't work out. Mm-hmm. And then you have to look at those things and go, but this is part of the plan. I brought up that story earlier. I broke my ankle back in 2019. I go, what is this? This ruined everything. This ruined I can't wrestle anymore and everything. But that's where I started to put on my size, and it upped my game at a different level, and it taught me to understand the physical look while also performing in the ring. So you have to just look at everything as a positive. Mm-hmm. And that's what faith has done for me in my life. Is everything is bad stuff happens, but there's a reason it happens.
Comeback is bigger than the setback. Boom. Steve says you can do it. WWE is just another show.
Steve's been there, done that. He doesn't care. But
right.
Yeah, that's the way that I look at it now, is because I have so many people that I know that are in these big companies and that are signed wrestlers. It's like, that's not so crazy. I knew that guy. He's just a guy.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy when he does talk about his experiences, because he does that. It just, when we did this, I'm like, what? Like and then he just posted in the group. I saw some of those videos he posted, some of his matches. Bro,
you're on YouTube for free. If anybody wants to learn how to have any kind of regular opening tag or opening great shine match, OVW, Seth Skyfire, he's the best wrestler in the world at one point. I watched those matches like 8 times since he sent them, because there's so many little things you can steal.
Because
I'm a stealer in wrestling. Everything that I've done is like, I stole that from somebody.
You're a student of the game. That's
I changed it. Right? I stole it. I stole everything.
Hey guys, those of you watching here, still taking any questions that you guys want to drop. And by the way, both Steve and Danny Devine have been on the Master Motivation podcast. If you want to go back and check out the YouTube channel and scan through some of those interviews, check out Steve's and check out Danny's, and share Brendan's.
It was so informative.
Yeah. So, well, I guess if we have no more questions, we can wrap up. But Brendan, thanks for being on the show. Thanks for getting me up early, because now I feel like I have so much day to do so much more. I might have to do more shows early. So anyway, well, I'm looking forward to our next workout as well.
Well, I mean, you have my phone number.
Yeah. Well, you're always
You
working.
can just call me. You can be like, "Hey, Brendan, are you working out today?" And I can be like, "Not with you."
Click.
Motivate that, Master Flame.
Anyway, hey,
that was a real taste of Brendan Cleary for you.
Oh yeah, he asked me at the beginning of the show, "How crazy can I be?" I said, "It's crazy. You can be as obnoxious as you want." Anyway, well, hey, thanks again for being on the show. Appreciate you being here today, sharing your story, and guys, check back with us on Monday and Wednesday each and every week. Got some great guests coming up, and don't forget on Tuesdays, I got my Tuesday Thoughts with Danny Devine, Danny Cleary. We will be talking about vulnerability this next Tuesday, so tune into that. Please subscribe to the Master Motivation Podcast YouTube channel and share the videos whenever you get a chance. Thanks so much, Brendan. Stick around for
us. Pose.
We're out. Yeah. All right, guys. Here's the video. Brendan, stick around for about 60 seconds. I'll be right back.
No.
See ya. Bye, guys.
See ya.
Make it a great day.